league in regards to Clark starting with WNBA legend Cheryl Swoops herself. She recently spoke on her podcast, Queens of the Court, and didn't mention the rookie when speaking of Indiana's rise in the standings. Here's what
Something massive has been brewing just beneath the surface of professional women's basketball, and the truth is finally spilling out into the open in a way nobody could have predicted. For months, fans watched with a mix of awe and confusion as the most celebrated rookie in the history of the sport stepped onto a professional court, only to be met with a strange, almost coordinated wall of hostility. Everyone saw the cheap shots, the tense press conferences, and the unmistakable eye rolls from veterans who had spent over a decade playing in mostly empty arenas. But what looked like simple competitive jealousy on television was masking something much bigger, a behind-the-scenes mutiny that nearly pushed the entire league to the brink. Rumors of secret meetings, locker room ultimatums, and growing resentment toward the league's new face had been circulating quietly for months, leaving fans wondering what really happened once the cameras stopped rolling. It wasn't until legendary analyst Stephen A. Smith went completely off script and confirmed the unthinkable that the puzzle pieces started falling into place. According to whispers and recently surfaced audio leaks, a powerful group of veteran players were so frustrated by the spotlight shifting away from them that they allegedly threatened a strike if the rookie continued receiving what they saw as preferential treatment. The scale of that internal tension is hard to comprehend, especially considering that this one player had already brought unprecedented attention, revenue, and global interest to the league. But the rabbit hole of jealousy and power struggles runs much deeper than a few angry veterans. To understand how a professional league nearly turned on its own biggest opportunity, you have to go back to the moment the resentment first began to grow. Even before the draft, the signs were already there for anyone paying close attention. Subtle jabs from the sport's old guard started appearing on national television. Legends of the game issued cryptic warnings about the incoming college superstar, suggesting that the brutal physicality of the professional level would quickly humble her. At the time, fans dismissed those comments as normal competitive trash talk, the kind veterans often throw at rookies. But insiders believed it was the beginning of a coordinated psychological campaign meant to protect the fragile pride of players who had spent years being overlooked by mainstream media. The history behind all this matters. For nearly 3 decades, women in the WNBA fought an uphill battle against low television ratings, weak merchandise sales, and limited public attention. Many players flew commercial flights, slept in crowded airports, and spent their off-seasons playing overseas in foreign leagues just to earn a stable income. They endured those conditions for years while pushing league executives for better marketing and higher pay, only to be told that the money simply didn't exist. Then suddenly, a 22-year-old phenom from the Midwest arrived and shattered nearly every collegiate viewership record imaginable. Caitlin Clark brought a tidal wave of attention, sponsorship money, and global curiosity straight to the league's doorstep. You might expect veterans to celebrate the player who finally helped deliver the exposure they had been fighting for. But human nature rarely works that way. When the rookie signed a groundbreaking multi-million-dollar sneaker deal before even playing her first professional game, the tension inside locker rooms reportedly reached a breaking point. Players who had spent 15 years grinding for modest paychecks were suddenly watching a newcomer dominate headlines and endorsement markets overnight. Instead of riding that momentum together, resentment started building. The league quickly saw new financial opportunities, most notably the introduction of private charter flights, a benefit players had been demanding for more than a decade. Yet instead of gratitude toward the catalyst who helped bring those changes, a bitter narrative quietly spread behind the scenes. Some veterans reportedly felt disrespected, believing the league only prioritized player safety and comfort once a certain demographic's favorite star arrived. That mix of financial envy and wounded pride created a volatile atmosphere waiting for a spark. Older players felt their years of sacrifice were being erased from the story, replaced by a media frenzy surrounding someone who hadn't yet proven herself at the professional level. It became a classic case of misdirected anger. Rather than blaming executives who had ignored them for years, the frustration was aimed squarely at the rookie. And it didn't take long for that tension to spill onto the court. Once the season began, it quickly became obvious that the rookie had become the league's primary target. Fans tuning in for highly anticipated matchups instead witnessed a series of aggressive moments that sometimes felt closer to a wrestling match than a professional basketball game. The most unforgettable moment came when a sudden blindside hip check sent the rookie crashing to the floor while the ball wasn't even in play, an incident that shattered the idea of a supportive sisterhood within the league. What made these moments even more disturbing wasn't just the aggression itself, but the silence surrounding it. Officials and league leadership seemed hesitant to step in decisively, allowing the tension to simmer in full public view. And for many fans watching around the world, that raised a chilling question. Was this simply rough competition, or something far more organized happening behind the scenes? It was as if a silent agreement had spread across the entire association, allowing veterans to haze the newcomer without any real fear of suspension, heavy fines, or serious penalties. Veteran players were even seen cheering from the bench when the rookie was knocked down, while post-game press conferences turned into passive-aggressive showcases where rivals refused to even say her name into the microphone. The reality was hard to ignore. The league's most profitable asset in its history was being targeted on the court, and the powers in charge seemed content to let it happen to protect the egos of the old guard. They wanted to humble her, break her confidence, and remind everyone that this was still their league, no matter whose name appeared on the best-selling jerseys. But while the physical attacks were visible to everyone watching, the real betrayal was unfolding quietly in high-rise boardrooms, where the most damaging decision of her young career was being prepared. The biggest shock came when the roster for the world's grandest international stage was announced, and the most famous young star in the sport was completely absent from the list. When the roster for the 2024 Summer Olympics women's basketball team was revealed, Clark was nowhere to be found. The Olympics snub sent shockwaves across the global sports community. Fans, celebrities, and even legendary athletes from other sports expressed disbelief that someone generating such massive attention and revenue could be left off the roster. The official explanation from the selection committee sounded simple. They claimed she lacked international experience and that adding her might disrupt the chemistry of the veteran squad representing USA basketball. But leaks and insider reports suggested a far more complicated situation behind closed doors. According to sources close to the process, members of the veteran corps allegedly pushed back strongly against adding the rookie to the team, fearing her presence would dominate the spotlight during the international tournament in Paris. The argument was framed publicly as protecting team chemistry, but critics believed it was a sign of deeper resentment. Some observers argued the committee had been pressured into passing over the very player who might have filled arenas across France and drawn unprecedented global attention to the tournament. It was a controversial decision that quickly spiraled into a public debate about power, ego, and the future direction of the sport. Many of the veterans appeared confident they could control the narrative, keeping the rising star outside the spotlight while maintaining their position within the sport's hierarchy. But the backlash was immediate and far louder than anyone expected. And it didn't take long before one of the most outspoken voices in sports media stepped directly into the controversy. Stephen A. Smith has never been known for staying quiet, but when the treatment of the rookie reached a boiling point, he delivered a fiery commentary that instantly grabbed headlines across the sports world. Speaking to millions of viewers, he rejected the careful diplomatic language other networks were using to avoid criticizing the WNBA and instead confronted the issue head-on. He openly questioned why some veteran players appeared hostile toward the very athlete bringing unprecedented revenue and attention to the league. His criticism highlighted what he described as a contradiction. Players had spent years demanding better pay, improved travel conditions, and stronger television deals, yet now seemed resentful toward the player who had accelerated those changes. Smith pointed to measurable shifts in the league's popularity. Sold-out arenas across multiple cities, surging television ratings, and skyrocketing ticket demand. In his argument, the rookie's impact wasn't theoretical, it was visible in numbers and revenue. He also suggested that resistance toward the young star might extend beyond simple competitive rivalry. According to his commentary, there were signs of deeper tensions behind the scenes, with some individuals allegedly pushing the league to reduce how heavily it marketed its newest superstar. By bringing those conversations into the open, he forced the broader sports world to confront uncomfortable questions about what might really be happening inside the league. Suddenly, the debate was no longer about tough competition on the court. It had become a conversation about culture, control, and the direction of professional women's basketball. But the situation escalated even further when a major labor decision changed the entire landscape of the league. The whispers of internal conflict took on new meaning when the players' union representing athletes in the WNBA announced that it would opt out of the league's current collective bargaining agreement. To casual observers, the move looked like a normal business strategy. With new television deals and rising revenue, many assumed the players simply wanted to renegotiate for higher salaries and improved benefit. But the timing of the decision, and reports of private discussions behind the scenes, sparked speculation that something far more complex might be unfolding within the league's power structure. Some analysts began connecting the dots, suggesting the opt-out could become a powerful negotiating tool in a broader struggle over the league's future direction and the overwhelming influence of its fastest-rising star. The leaked sentiments, carefully guarded by media elites before eventually reaching the public, suggested that a powerful faction of veterans were furious that the league's promotional machine had turned into what they viewed as a one-woman show. According to explosive reports highlighted by Stephen A. Smith and other journalists, there were even whispers of serious threats behind the scenes. Talk of a possible work stoppage if the league didn't immediately adjust its marketing priorities to give veteran players a larger share of the spotlight. In effect, some players were seen as using the looming future of the WNBA as leverage, pushing for the league's growing revenue and attention to be spread more evenly, regardless of which athletes were driving the biggest fan interest. The idea that professional athletes might risk disrupting their own league at a moment of rising popularity sounded unbelievable to many observers. Yet critics argued that long-standing frustrations and feelings of being overlooked had created a level of resentment that made the situation far more volatile than it appeared on the surface. Some voices within the veteran community reportedly wanted limits placed on how heavily one player could be featured in promotions, suggesting that commercials, merchandise campaigns, and primetime television coverage should highlight multiple stars equally. But supporters of the league's newest sensation pushed back, pointing to the basic reality of fan demand. They argued that the surge in ticket sales, television ratings, and merchandise was largely fueled by interest in Caitlin Clark, whose arrival had brought an entirely new wave of viewers to women's basketball. To them, the debate wasn't about fairness, it was about market reality. Fans were tuning in specifically to watch a generational talent. Still, the tensions didn't fade. As speculation about potential labor disputes continued, critics claimed that some players intensified their media campaign, using interviews, podcasts, and social media to challenge the narrative surrounding the rookie's rapid rise. Several rivals began framing her popularity as a result of outside factors rather than purely basketball skill, attempting to shift the conversation away from the hype surrounding her performances. In doing so, an unusual alignment appeared across competing teams. Players who normally battled each other suddenly seemed united in questioning whether the attention placed on the rookie was justified. On the court, the frustration occasionally spilled over. Games involving the rookie often became noticeably more physical, with heated moments between players and referees drawing national attention. For fans watching closely, the situation started to look less like ordinary competitive intensity and more like a larger cultural clash inside the league, between an established generation of veterans and the sudden arrival of a new superstar who had transformed the spotlight overnight. Some commentators defended the aggressive style of play as traditional welcome to the league toughness, arguing that every great player must prove themselves against physical defense. Others believed the line between competitive basketball and targeted hostility had already been crossed. What made the debate even more heated was the reaction from the audience itself. Despite attempts by some commentators to frame the controversy as normal basketball culture, many fans simply weren't convinced. They watched the games, saw the viral clips, and formed their own opinions. And a growing portion of the public believed something bigger than ordinary rivalry was unfolding inside the league.